Today I'm going to talk about scaling your sales conversations. It's a huge challenge and I'm really excited to talk about it. Make sure to stick around to the end where we actually have a download to our path to purchase, which not just talks about discovery calls and scaling sales conversations, it talks about actually writing your messaging, building your lists, sending your messaging, discovery calls, and closing. So make sure to stick around and download that. Let's get into it. So there's a huge challenge in B2B SaaS growth, and that is building relationships. And the challenge is you're only one person. So how do you scale yourself? How do you have relationships with hundreds of potential prospects? And in my experience, over the years, I've had the privilege of being a part of thousands of these initial relationships. And the reality is, in my experience, and this is actually backed by industry data, only about a third of the initial conversations you have are ready to buy. So like if you had 100 conversations, only about a third of them are ready to buy. And that doesn't mean those third are going to close. It doesn't mean those third want to do business. That just means they are, whatever criteria you have, whether it's like they have the budget, things like that, that they're eligible for you to actually go close. So how the heck do you focus on just those third? And on the flip side, the opportunity here is if you can figure out a good way to just focus on that third, then your energies or your best talents' energies will be focused on going and closing business that is actually ready to buy. So in my experience at Profits for Purpose, my SaaS company, what happened was we had this huge challenge. Once we figured out how to set up demos, we literally looked at it at 100 call chunk. I was overwhelmed. I'd done 100 initial calls over this summer and I was just overwhelmed. I was like, how do I follow up with all these? How do I figure out who to work with? And that's when we hired this guy. His name was Dan, and we called him Dan the Man. And the other problem was we didn't have enough money to hire a really talented head of sales that would take over these types of conversations. So we hired Dan the Man, and I was forced to kind of give him parameters that said, this is how you do this first call, and this is, and then here's the parameters to hand it off to me. So that was, and once we figured that out, we started working in close tandem, and then eventually hired a head of sales to replace the role I was doing. So with that, I'll show you the framework that I set up for a discovery call. It's an acronym. I call it the Discovery Call Quadrant. It's an acronym. It spells GRAM. So the G. The G is on that first call, you have to establish and articulate and define a goal. Okay? So for us, our goal, and this would be unique to you, but for us, we had two things. We need to establish credibility, make sure that when we get on the phone, they're impressed with us. And the other goal was qualify them. So it's not, we need to build this long-term relationship, we need to close this deal, we need to do X, Y, and Z. It's two things. If you can talk to them, you can do it in 15 minutes, and you need to impress them, build credibility for us, and you need to see if it's worth setting up a second call. So that's the G. The R is rules. So this is, what are the rules to progress them past a discovery call, okay? So, for us, what we did was we used the BANT criteria. That's a pretty tried and true industry term. Do they have the budget? Do they have the authority, the decision-making power? Do they have the need for the product? And do they have a time? Like in a reasonable amount of time. For us, it was in the next 90 days, do we think they're gonna be able to give a verbal yes? Then move them forward. If it's, hey, we actually wanna make this decision. Sometimes you hit budget, authority, need, but the timing is next year. That's fine. Don't move them past the discovery call. So you set up your rules. You can use BANT. Maybe you have something more specific for you. The A in GRAM is action steps. So if they hit those rules, what is the action that needs to be taken out of that? And I think of it kind of like internally and externally. So internally, just like process over here. Like we had, create a lead for them in HubSpot. We use HubSpot as a CRM. Enter them into kind of our email nurturing cadence. And then externally with them, set that next call up. Set the call up with them and bring in the next person. And many times if you're in this stage watching this video and this is a pain point for you, it might be you. So your next step might not be go hire that head of sales that just takes over this process. A baby step toward this is hire a Dan the Man that does a discovery call, or even just for yourself, start adhering to this rule. So you don't follow up with all 100 prospects. You are really just focusing on the third that are ready to buy and that potentially will close. So if you've done the goal, if you've had the rules and you have the action steps, the last is M, and that's max. So you need to decide what are the max touch points to get the next call. So for us, I think, I'm trying to remember back, I think it was 4 touch points within a month. If we had 4 follow-ups within a month and they did not get the next call on the calendar, then it was get them out of our warm pipeline, put them in a nurture marketing cadence, and that way you can spend your energies following up with prospects that are hot, that are ready, that are interested in actually buying. So I think one of the biggest myths about this sort of thing is that you have to be the one person that can build all these relationships. And I promise you that's not true. If you're growing a company and either it's you or if you do have a head of sales and you want them to perform better, you need to look at them and help them problem solve this and say, look, you can outsource this segment, this discovery call process, and see if then it can set up the second step to come further down the sales funnel. But the myth is that you have to build a relationship with all 100. You don't. Just find out the third that you need to focus your energies on and go from there. So in review, my encouragement to you would be in the sales process, set up a discovery call, and that will help you scale your relationships. And to do that, use Graham, the discovery call quadrant. Set up a goal for that call, set up rules around that call, rules of engagement, action steps out of it, and a max touch points, boundaries around how much time you will spend chasing that lead. And so today I'd like to, if you've liked this content, I'd encourage you to subscribe. We said it, we're putting this type of content out every couple weeks. I would also encourage you to comment. Let me know what you like, what you dislike, if you agree, if you have a different perspective. And at the very last, like I mentioned at the beginning, in the description, we have a download to our path to purchase, which covers the marketing, these discovery calls. It covers the full funnel, building your list, getting out there, getting your demos, discovery call, closing. And with that, I'd encourage you guys to go out there and create your own serendipity.